Hi, welcome to Lightspeed Academy. I'm Jim Cooper, and thanks for joining me for this Lightspeed session on understanding JSX. JSX is the syntax used by React, although it's mostly just JavaScript and HTML. And it is a transpiled syntax or language, which means you'll write your code using JSX, but before it is sent to the browser, it is transpiled or compiled into plain old JavaScript so that browsers can understand it. We don't need to worry too much about that process though, so let's jump into the JSX syntax. Here is the index.js file that we talked about in our bootstrapping React video. It is already using JSX to render our app component, but just to demonstrate a few things, let's copy all of this here, and then we'll comment this out and paste a copy down here. And instead of rendering our app component here, let's create a new variable up here like this. So an h1 variable that's containing an h1 tag. So this is JSX. And then we'll just render that down here. So now if I save that, awesome, you can see that we rendered our h1 tag. But let's talk about what's happening here, starting with this line. It's strange to see HTML intermingled with JavaScript code on a single line like this, but this is JSX. The angle bracket here is a clue to the JSX compiler that we're beginning HTML. So we're creating an HTML element and we're storing it in this h1 variable, and then we can render it with React DOM down here. As you'll see shortly, you won't typically have to make React DOM calls like this because you'll largely be working with components that are loaded by your app component. We'll see that in a future video. But this is a simple way to demonstrate JSX. Okay, so what if we wanted to put our HTML on multiple lines like this? Well, that works too. And you can see if I put some exclamation points here and save, that renders just fine. However, it is a good practice to wrap your HTML in parentheses like this if you're doing multiple lines. This is to avoid problems with JavaScript's automatic semicolon insertion, which can cause problems sometimes. Okay, so that's putting HTML in our JavaScript. What if we want to put JavaScript in our HTML? Well, to demonstrate that, we can do that right here. So instead of rendering hello world, we're going to render a JavaScript expression, which we do by inserting curly braces. So I'm going to add the expression 2 + 2 here. And if I save that, then you can see it rendered hello 4. So it evaluated the JavaScript expression and inserted that into our HTML. Notice if I get rid of these braces, it just says hello 2 + 2 because it just thinks that this is HTML that we're wanting to render. And we can call functions here too. So if I put those braces back and then come up here and add a function, we'll create a function called getUsername that just returns Jim. All right, and then I can just call that down here inside our braces. And now if I save that, you can see it says hello Jim. So that works great. And since you can call functions, you'll often see the map function called on arrays in order to render multiple items. So let's change this function to be called renderUsername. And instead of just returning a string, we will return a list item element. We'll pass in a username, and we will render that inside our list item. So notice we're using JSX inside our function too. And now I'll just add a new variable to hold an array of usernames. All right, now down here inside our braces, I'm going to loop over our new array by calling usernames.map. And then for each username, I'm going to call renderUsername, and I'll pass in the username. All right, and then I'll delete these exclamation points, and let's put this whole thing inside a unordered list like this. And then if I save that, there we go. You can see that works great. It's rendering each username inside a list item. That's pretty awesome. Okay, so that's the basic concepts that you need to understand with JSX. But we still have a lot of React stuff to cover. If you want to keep going, here is the next video on React component basics. And here is the entire Lightspeed React playlist. And of course, please like and subscribe if you'd like to see other content that we're putting together. And thanks, and keep learning at Lightspeed.